Hi everyone, this is David with Tigner Adventures, and we are on to our next video about our trip planning for this summer. This is video number 2 in a 3-part series. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how we enter those items in TripWizard that are normally not in TripWizard. And our last video, we showed you how to do reservations. And one of the reservations that we have now done since that video is make our reservations for our trip to Newfoundland. And we got the ferry all scheduled out there, which was really tough. And we're going to be taking Tansy. Huh, Tansy? You all excited about going on a ferry? We didn't want to leave her down in the bottom with the motorhome, so on this ferry trip, we're actually got some pet-friendly rooms that we're going to actually get to ride in over across the ferry for like 8 hours. In our last video, we talked about that we were doing a 3-part video. And the first part was on reservations, and that's what we talked about in our last video. Then the next video, which is this one now, we're going to talk about the planning processes, getting things in there that aren't necessarily within TripWizard. For example, Harvest Host is one of the things that I mentioned because we get a lot of questions about that one. And then, of course, the ending video, the third video, is like the big hurrah. It shows you all the things that TripWizard can do that's already built into TripWizard for you, all the research capability and things like that. So we'll do that on the very last video of this 3-video set. And at the end of the video, we're going to give you a couple tips on how to make smaller trips, how to put different things that you want in there for places that you want to visit while you're in a particular area, and what to do if you just want to have a trip that's just a like a road trip. Now, as I mentioned before, we are using a software product called TripWizard by RV Life, and this software makes things a lot easier to plan out your trip, and we have been using it ourselves now for 5 years. If you use our discount code Tigner25, then you save 25% if you're not already a member. We are leaving at the end of March from Yuma, Arizona, and we will not be back until November of the same year. So we're going to be gone for almost 8 months. So we want to have things planned out, kind of have an idea what we're doing, and that's what TripWizard does for us. Now, when I finished the first video, I continued to keep working on our map, and we've made a lot of changes from that first video already. Now we're currently at about a little over 11,000 miles, so that's going to be a large trip this year. Last year was 8,000 miles, and that was a long ways, but we did it in 6 months. This time we have about 8 months, so that'll be nice. And we're going to go all the way over here to the East Coast, and the Northeast actually, clear up here to Newfoundland. So this will be pretty exciting. We're pretty excited about it. But if you look here, we have this trip over here to Newfoundland. I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. Part of that trip is on a ferry, and there are things that are already scheduled within TripWizard, and we're going to go through all that in our next video. But there are things that aren't in there that we need to add in there. So to start off with, let's just kind of zoom in here. We actually have a couple different ferry terminals that we got to get to where we're going to catch the ferry and go across. So I'm just kind of zooming into this one. This is in North Sydney, Nova Scotia. You can see I've got 2 stops here. One way to do this is to just highlight a certain area, and so we're just going to say this right here. We're going to just double click on it right here, and it's going to say create a custom stop. So create the custom stop. This now comes up and wants to know the name of it, and so you just type in the name, how many nights, and then you select where you want this stop to actually be placed. So this stop will be placed after this park here. I go ahead and just save the custom stop. So once the stop is created, then it's going to show up on the left over here, and then you'll notice that it's blinking on the map right there. So that is my stop, and that's all I do to add these different stops in there. And at that point, I can say I can add nights to it if I want to. In this particular case, I'm going across on a ferry and it's going to take all night. We're not going to get there till the next morning. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say that we're going to be on there one night, because we actually arrive at Port Basque terminal here in Newfoundland on July 5th, like 10 a.m. in the morning. So, and we catch the ferry, it'll be like at midnight. so anyway, so that's pretty cool. One thing that I didn't mention before when I was talking about making reservations, because you can see I have these locked in here now. If I go in here to edit this and I go down to the bottom of the screen, I was telling you before, there's a lot of information here that you can put in there. And one of the things is you can put your reservation information in there. You can put the phone number in there, and then that way, when you are navigating with your tablet or phone, you have these in there as notes that you can actually look at. So that's one way that we can actually add things in here. And so that's pretty cool. And we can do custom stops all day long. So if it's not in TripWizard, it's very easy to put it in there. If you like our content, please consider subscribing to our channel. Maybe giving us a thumbs up would help a lot. And also make any comments that you can, and especially on if there's things that will help out the community, or give us some ideas of things that you would like us to cover in future videos. So one of the things I wanted to show you was how we figure out places to go and things like that, and this will kind of go along. The way that we deal with this is the same that we deal with all like Harvest Host and things like that too. So in our case, we bring up the web browser and we type in here Quirky and something. This was Ohio's the last place I looked, but I could look at Nova Scotia, for example. And you can see that within this list here, these are quirky things that are available, but this one software thing comes up a lot, Atlas Obscura. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but anyway, this has 36 cool and unusual things that you can do in Nova Scotia. There's other ones down through here that you can see also. The reason I like these guys the most is because two things. You can donate to them if you want, and then that way you don't see all the different ads that pop up. But a lot of those articles and things that people write on things, they have so many ads in them, and they're really strung out. It's hard to really figure out things. But within this software, you can see that they just have all the different attractions right here. I could go down here and say see all things to do in Nova Scotia. So once I do that, then it updates and I look down through here. I then have at the bottom of the screen here, I have, you know, how many other screens there are. Now it depends on the area you're going to as to how many things are out there. And so, you know, but this gives you a pretty good idea. This is how we find a lot of things. We just utilize the internet to look at things and come up with all kinds of ideas. Once we find them, then we can enter those into TripWizard. And we do that two different ways. One of them is where if we just find something here, like for example this waterfall. So they have this map right here that they kind of show things. So that way I can click right here. I can expand this out so I can see the area a little bit more. And I can look at my TripWizard and see where I'm going, which, you know, I'm actually going down this highway right here. So I can see about where I'm going to be camping and where this particular option is. Now in this case, I also have an address right here. I have a GPS coordinates. Like if I go back over to TripWizard here, you can see that I've now I've expanded this out just a little bit, but we're going to be staying at this park right here. If I edit this, I have this option down here at the bottom where comments are. And so what I'll do is I'll go in here to this area here, you know, from this, what I've searched on the internet, and I'll just copy down this information. So it could be just the address here, it could be the GPS coordinates, it could be their phone number, whatever the case may be. I take all that and I just start entering it all into the comments, this particular stop. That way I have a list of things once I get to that camping area that I can just look at the comments and see what's available in the area to go visit. All right. Now that's one way of doing it. The next way to do it is to, especially those stops that if I want to make it part of my actual trip, okay, and so this would happen, typically I would do this like on days that I'm traveling and I'm going to be driving by some area that is like, oh, that would be really cool to go see or something like that. And I can go over to TripWizard here, and then they have this search bar up here, and I can paste in those GPS coordinates. I can paste in an address and just hit enter. It automatically brings it up, and I can expand this out a little bit to kind of see where I'm at. And you can see that our trip is over here. If I move back here, is this campground, this Gateway Parkland. And from there, I'm going to go down here to, let's expand this out a little bit, to this park here. And then from there, I'm going to the ferry terminal. So I guess in this case, I'm just going to go from this park, and on the way here is going to take 4 hours. But say I want to stop at this waterfall. I just have to look this up, Gateway Parkland. And so I'm just going to click on here. It's going to add this to my trip. And I just go down through here until I find Gateway Parkland. So right here. And I just click on that, and there's my GPS coordinates. What I can do is I can just copy that, and I'm going to just paste those in my comments at this point. And I'm just going to type in here the name of this waterfall, Black Hole Falls. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add that to my trip. And then it will go ahead and route. It's calculating things out right now. And now if I expand this back out again, you can see how we've made a little side trip here. We come in here, over to here, and then I would go back to this campground over here. So if I go back here, there's Gateway, which is the one blinking there at the top of the screen. I go down, I'm driving down here to the Black Hole Falls. From there, I'm going to drive to my next camp spot. So you can see it really added some hours on here. But that's how you can add stops in there on your way. Now, this isn't quite on my way enough, but you know, that's just another way that we can put things in there. And that's the same thing that you can do with Harvest Host, or even anything out there. You know, any other places that you might want to camp that's not in here. One of the ones that we have stayed at in the past quite a bit is Elks Lodges, and not all those are in there. That's kind of a private little thing, and some do and some don't, and it kind of comes and goes. So it may be something, you know, as Elks members, we can see some of that information. So we could take that address for that Elks Lodge that we've made arrangements to go stay at, and go ahead and put it in the search bar and add that to our trip. Or how about a friend sends you a contact and says, man, we had this happen when we were at an escapees thing. We met a couple, and they were staying up at the Teton National Park. And they had a really large rig, and they said, you know, it was hard getting in places, but we found this really cool boondocking place. Let me send you the coordinates of where that's at. And they sent it over to me. Well, I then took that and put it into TripWizard and said, pull that up. It pulled up that spot, and then I saved it. So just having that capability, we can tie into anything. So we don't have to have Harvest Host. We don't have to log into it and bring it up here to have it, you know, because the question I always get is, why doesn't this tie into Harvest Host? Well, basically it ties into everything, because we have access to look at anything we want on the internet, and we find it, and we have a way to put it in there. So I've shown you 2 different ways that you can actually add things into the trip. And then I've also showed you a way here that you can take all the things that you find out there on the internet and just say, let's just make a list of all the things we want to do when we are in that particular area. So that's pretty cool. And you know, that's one of the things I like about the software, because it's so flexible. I can do that. I can move things around. I can modify the dates if I need to or whatever. I never have to worry about if, you know, those reservations are going to get, you know, pushed out of the way, because if I try to add some nights in there that aren't going to work with the reservations I've already made, TripWizard is going to come up and say you can't add those. You know, you have no days left. Okay, if you look over here on the left side right now, I still have 21 nights of unplanned time. But if I went into this park, for example, and said add 22 nights, it would give me an error. And if you don't believe that, let's just try it. We're going to add 22 nights to this, so we're going to make it 23 nights total now. So if I click on that, whoops, looks like there's a problem here. That's what the cool thing about this software. It doesn't let you get in trouble. It's taking care of you, and that's what's cool about it. Now let's go ahead and talk about some tips we mentioned at the first of the video. I'm going to give you a couple tips on each one of these videos to kind of help you out as you're planning things. Tip number one, we have this big long map, big trip all scheduled out here that we showed you and everything, but maybe you want to have small trips or maybe some smaller trips. You don't have to have one bigger trip. You can break this up into as many trips as you want. If you are staying in an area, some people say, well, is there a way that I can add some other stops and things to go around while I'm at a particular area? Well, the way to do that is just create another trip. You can create as many trips as you want. And so if we go back to our map from last year, we was up in Banff National Park. So I'm just going to kind of zoom in here. I'm going to come right over here. We stayed at Lake Louise. We were there for 7 nights. And so what I did was we had a lot of things that we did there that we needed reservations for and everything. So we just created an extra little map. And so if I open up in here, I have Banff, Lake Louise. This was just 6 nights that was there. And so this is how we break up our routes so that we have all our reservations in there. So over here on the left, you can see I was starting at Lake Louise, and then I wanted to go to Lake Meringue, Lake Louise. So you'll see down at the bottom of the map there, it's jumping up and down. That's the area that I'm going to catch this. I made a reservation, so if I go in here, I have the reservation information here, and I have what time our reservation is going to be. So that's pretty cool. And then when I'm done with that, I come back to here. Well, the cool thing about that is I can now bring that up on my phone or tablet, whatever you're using for your routing. So you can bring up your trips right here. So you can see that this mimics what was in RV Trip Wizard on my laptop. And so I have my summer 2023 trip here for 184 nights, but now I have this 6-night stay at Banff, Lake Louise. And so when we were there, we actually arrived there on the 27th, and you can see that we're staying there a couple nights. And then on the 29th, we actually went to Lake Meringue / Louise. So that's a shuttle that goes up to those lakes. And so if I hit this navigate, then it would actually navigate me to the shuttle stop. I can also just click on notes here, and you can see I have my reservation information here and comments. It's a 2 to 3 o'clock departure. And all this is showing up here right now, but on the day of the event, then the main thing that shows up is just the item for that date. And so it's very easy just to, on that date when you open it up, it's just going to jump up, for example, Columbia Icefields. That's what you're going to see, and you can hit navigate. Now up here at the top, you also have where you can download your trips. And so I've done that, so they're already downloaded. So that means that I won't have to worry about it if I don't have any cell service. And then one note here just to make on these downloaded trips, if I go back over here and I go into this more section in the top right, the bottom right corner here, then I have my offline storage. If I click on that, you can see what I have stored there. So I can just click on Canada, for example, and this is what I have stored. So right now the only thing that's stored in there is just Alberta, but I can actually put any of these in there. This is all the places that I'm going to be hitting while I'm traveling within the maps that I have set up on my phone right now. So I could download any of those maps, or I can just click on here and I can say, you know what, I don't need that that data stored on my phone anymore, and it will erase it, so I'm not using up all the memory on my phone. Now for tip number 2. So a lot of people talk about when they're planning a trip, they don't like to plan things out so far in advance. They don't like to necessarily, this is a trip planning software, so the idea is to plan your trip out. But say you just want to go on a road trip, like what we just did as far as going, driving around Banff National Park. But say I get up this morning and I want to go somewhere, and I don't have it planned at all yet. We're not in this planning mode. We're just going to go from here to some point, and then from there, in a few days or a week or whatever, then we want to go to the next point. How do we do that within Trip Wizard? So the simple way to do it is I'm just going to create a trip here, put in here whatever. So test trip, and I'm just going to create this. I'm going to, let's just start our location. We are currently in Yuma, Arizona. So we're just going to hit here Yuma and Arizona. And at that point, I'm just going to say, this is where I'm going to start. So I'm just creating a blank slate. I'm just going to use all the defaults here for my rig that is already saved there. That's what makes this so cool. So it keeps all my defaults here. The only thing that I want to point out here is under routing and driving. If I go down here, I do have this set up that I'm driving 50 miles an hour on my average, and you can put that to anything you want. And I want this based on my driving speed, and I want it to, we're going to turn on show advanced driving radius, okay? And we're going to base it on, I want to drive about 3 hours. When I'm going to drive, I'm going to drive about 3 hours. So I'm just going to save that. And you'll notice that this map is just in the middle here. It's got this little blinking thing. That is Yuma, Arizona. And it's showing that based on the roads that I can drive with this advanced routing, I can go to any one of these points. So say I'm just sitting here today. It's like, you know, I don't want to travel more than about 3 hours a day, but I've been here for a little bit and I want to leave. I want to go about 3 hours away. Well, what I can do then is I can just come up here and say, look, this is going to take me over into this area right here. This is right here is 3 hours away if I want to go straight down the interstate. If I want to go up towards this way, this is going to take me up to this portion. You know, 3 hours will get me to there. And I can go ahead and add a stop there. I can do a custom stop. I can go up here and hit this map thing that we'll talk more about next week. And I can just pick up parks and things like that. And so once I put that on there and save that one, then it becomes my next stop. And I can stay there for another week or two and then decide, you know what, I want to go somewhere else. I want to go west, for example. And it will do the same identical thing. It just brings up this big, you know, advanced green thing here. In this case, you know, if I wanted it based on how many miles, I can do it that way. In this case, I'm based on hours. So just doing a road trip, or just making it so that I can just do a little bit here, a little bit there, just based on my whims for today, you know, stay in different places. I don't have to plan things out all the time. I can, you know, put some spontaneity into that and just be able to go to different places that I want to. And this is giving me an idea. And maybe I don't know where I want to go today, but when I look at this and I see that these are all the places I can get to in 3 hours, so where do you want to go? Anyway, hopefully that helps you out. You know, TripWizard to us has just been really a lifesaver, and we love using it to plan our trips. And I'm more of a plan guy, you know, that's why, you know, when we're planning, we plan it out to be 3 hours at a time, because we do want some ability to stop and do things and see things and, you know, along the trip. But I really don't want to drive any more than 3 hours either. So, and when it says 50 miles an hour, that's our average. That's based on all our stops and things like getting gas and everything. So you can change that to whatever you want. But the cool thing is that's about how far we're going to go. And if we use this little, you know, map thing, or, you know, this little grid that comes up to show us, we can figure out how far we got to drive before we need to find another camp spot and things like that. So, you know, TripWizard just makes life so much easier in that situation. So again, you know, we have a 25% discount code. I mean, if you're interested in looking at RV Life, they do have a 7-day free trial, and it's crazy not to, you know, get 25% off. So use that code and help us out. That helps us out, but it helps you out too, and gets you a little bit of a discount. You can check it all out. So anyway, thanks for coming along on this one. Our next video will be our third and final video. We are going to go through the things that TripWizard offers that's all built into TripWizard. It's kind of the big bang, the final wow of what this video series is all about. So please join us for that one. It'll be out as our next video. This is number 2. And so thanks for watching this one, and we'll just plan on seeing you down the road somewhere, and if not, it'll be on that next video. So thanks.